right, really quickly, on the quick right, what were some thoughts? Was there any time that it would be okay to limit the citizens' rights?
No.
Ava? Okay, like who? Okay, so people who have a mental illness maybe shouldn't be able to, so limit the rights in terms of the Second Amendment. Okay, I know there are two people that wrote about that might disagree with her. Do you guys want to counter?
Well, I would agree with that. People are not fit to they have a high criminal record or yet they are living in a state where they should not.
Okay, so maybe that's a time when it is okay to limit that right? Kaden?
I think, yeah, that's like I didn't really write about that in there, but I kind of just, that's probably the only thing I could really think of that would be smart to limit rights in that category, but like everything else, I kind of just thought it would be kind of against like our constitutional rights.
To limit?
Yeah.
Freedom of speech, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what almost everyone wrote about. Elijah?
I completely didn't know that we were writing about, so I was writing about different.
What did you say?
I thought we were writing about like racism, like if it's ever okay to like make a judgment on a race of people.
That's fine. If that's how you interpreted it,
I did.
that's fine.
I did.
Okay? So the way they interpreted it is a little bit different. They're thinking rights like physical rights, constitutional rights. You were interpreting it as rights based off of your skin color or your race. That's fine too.
I was saying there's lots of Mexican people in our country, but just because we have illegals crossing doesn't mean we should take away their rights because of other people.
Oh, okay. So you kind of went into, because remember the question said even a resident of the United States, could we ever have the right to take away their rights? So you're saying no, even if that's what you're saying. Okay. Anyone want to counter or agree with Elijah? Yeah.
I kind of took it as if. It's just funny how he turned around and was like, you. I kind of
Curiosity killed Elijah.
Hold on, it's Jillian's turn to talk.
If
I'm
one
sorry.
person does something wrong, everyone should be punished for it. And, like,
Okay.
some teachers do that in classrooms.
Oh.
Or if like one person's talking, they tell everyone to go like run a lap or something.
I'm going to try that next
That's
time.
how
Charles, you speak up, run a lap.
Every student can I? that one student.
Yeah, that was.
Oh, why not?
Charles would want to play Frisbee. All right,
No,
so,
I would literally run a
hold on.
lap right
Let me
now.
give an example. I did that, right?
Easy.
Charles. I did that when someone kept crushing Cheez-Its on the floor. I was like, that's it, you're no longer eating in here for a week until I change my mind. Right? So because one person, and we all know who it was, left her coconut, nasty little thing on my floor, right?
It was Levi.
So
He always
gross.
brings teachers.
It was so gross.
Yeah.
All right, bring it back. Bring it back. Okay. So just like that, that's true. And remember we talked about that when we watched the What Would You Do video with the woman in the hijab. It's the same thing. When one person does something from a different minority or a different culture, then we assume everyone in that culture is the same. Okay? And that's even if we just assume that, we're limiting our rights, right? Good. Okay. So we're going to watch a quick video. It gives background. This is actually from your textbook. It gives background on the Japanese internment camps, why it happened, and a little bit of an overview of what they were. Okay? And then maybe we can have our resident historian on the internment camps tell us what he knows. You guys, we've been in history class a lot today, or this week.
Yeah.
It's kind of confusing.
Like,
What
sorry,
class
Mr.
are we
Wolf,
in?
you already know enough.
Sorry, Mr. Wolfson, the history teacher now. All right, I'll wait when it's quiet. Charles, let's put the computer forward and make sure we're watching, okay? Oh, I don't even want to press that because something weird's going to happen.
On December 7th, 1941, the Empire of Japan launched an attack on the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor. In the following months, hundreds of thousands of Japanese Americans were rounded up and sent to internment camps under suspicion of disloyalty to the United States. But the feelings that paved the road to internment began long before the attack. For more than 80 years, Asian immigrants were viewed as economic threats, spurring various laws that effectively banned them from the country. For those who made it to America, the lingering resentment culminated after Pearl Harbor. Motivated by vocal outcries from politicians and military officials, FDR signed Executive Order 9066, empowering the U.S. Army to designate areas from which any or all persons may be excluded. He later formed the War Relocation Authority to establish 10 permanent camps housing nearly 120,000 Japanese Americans, mostly from the western United States.
Okay. So, what's happened so far, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, correct? We're in World War II. So now the U.S. thinks that every Japanese person living in the United States is an enemy, okay? They're suspicious of them now. So now FDR signed a bill that basically is going to put all of these Japanese Americans within internment camps within the United States. What do you notice about the different locations? Look at where they're at in the United States. Okay, so maybe they're like closer to the West Coast. Okay, does anyone know where Topaz is? Has anyone driven through Topaz?
It's a rock.
Yeah.
What's it like?
I forgot.
Okay. It's really hot, and there's nothing there. All right, let's go to Arizona. What do we know about Arizona?
It's flat, and there's nothing there.
It's flat. There's nothing there. It's hot. What do we know about this area of California? Okay. All right. What do we know about?
Manzanar is in Death Valley.
This is we're gonna go through Manzanar next. Okay. So all of these locations are kind of in areas where nothing's there. All right. So think of Alcatraz. You guys know what Alcatraz is? Okay, it's the island off of San Francisco. It's very tiny, and there's a prison there. And the thought was, if a prisoner escapes, then they would be eaten by a shark trying to swim back. Okay. We all know how scared I am of sharks, so like.
Well, that was before Jaws, so like.
You're right. It was even worse.
That's terrifying. But the best part is, a tribe of Indians tried to live on that island after the prison shut down.
Is that true?
Yeah, because Alcatraz is BML land.
No, it was before the prison was built. They built it on top of an Indian.
I'm going to research it and we'll talk about it tomorrow, okay? So, think it's the same concept here. If you escape the prison camp, where are you going to go? You're going to go into Death Valley?
You're going to die. It's not.
2/3 of those interned were native-born American citizens. With only 6 days to dispose of their possessions, residents were forced to sell their belongings and even their homes for small sums of money. Internment camps were often situated in isolated deserts, prone to harsh weather, and surrounded by barbed wire and guard towers. Within the barracks, internees lived in small one-room apartments with little privacy and constant surveillance. They were only given a standard army cot, blankets, and a small heating stove. Despite these difficult living conditions, internees tried to establish a sense of community, creating newspapers, schools, churches, and farms. Even in the face of persecution, young men came forth to join the military. Nearly 33,000 Japanese Americans served during World War II, many of whom became highly decorated for their valor in battle. Yet as the war continued, public opinion worsened against Japanese Americans. Only 35% of the country thought they should be allowed home once the war was over. This sentiment kept the camps open for over 3 years. On December 17, 1944, the government announced that Japanese American evacuees could return to their homes. When they did return, they found their homes looted and their possessions gone. With work almost impossible to come by, many fell homeless and destitute. At the time, the federal government offered no assistance for those attempting to rebuild their lives. It would take over 40 years before President Ronald Reagan signed the Civil Liberties Act of 1988, paying reparations to each victim of internment.
No payment can make up for those lost years. So what is most important in this bill has less to do with property than with honor. For here we admit a wrong. Here we reaffirm our commitment as a nation to equal justice under the law.
USS Enterprise had proven her steel at the...
Oh, I know all about that shit.
About what?
Oh, I know all about that shit. USS Enterprise. What do you think I said, Mr. Volsky?
That's why I'm like, hey, Charles. Alright, what do we think about that? Here, let's do this actually. If this is completely new to you and you've never really like heard about this, raise your hand. This was me when I never knew about this thing. Okay.
Okay, so I've actually heard about that, but
okay.
I heard about them as incarceration.
Okay. So remember how we've talked about word choice and why the choice of words is so important? Okay. What's the difference between this and a concentration camp of the Jews in Nazi Germany?
Incarceration.
Well.
Okay.
Well.
No. I'm not talking about like the specific torture and things like that. What's different in terms of like taking a group of people and placing them as prisoners?
They were treated a lot worse than that.
Okay. So, but what's the difference between calling one a concentration camp and calling one an internment camp?
One sounds temporary.
One sounds temporary and one doesn't sound as bad, right? So maybe the way that we framed it doesn't make it sound as bad, but prisoners were shot on call. Okay, if someone was caught trying to leave, they were just shot.
The Japanese.
Just like that, yes. Okay. We're gonna go over because.
We won't even get into what the Japanese did to the Americans.
But these are Japanese Americans,
yeah.
Right? So because I'm a Japanese American, that means that it's my fault that Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. Is that like the thinking? Like, does that make sense to you?
So, if I could give a quick example of
Yeah.
another, was Louis Zamperini. He was Italian, and he almost got kicked out of school several times because he was Italian. And this was right after World War I, and they had just been fighting the Italians.
Tension.
Yeah, there was still tension between Italians and Americans.
Think about this, too. Think about 9/11. All right? After 9/11, if the United States government was like, all right, we're grabbing every person of Islamic faith and putting them in an internment camp, would that have been fair? If you are born in America or you immigrate to America and you are an American citizen, is it your fault that some people of your religion or of your culture did something horrendous? I want you to think about that, okay? I'm not giving you an answer or giving you an opinion. I want you to think about that, all right? The other thing that's really interesting about this, let's say I am married to a Japanese man. I was also dragged to this internment camp because I'm affiliated with the enemy. Okay, what's that called when you marry someone of a different race? We learned about it. Anti-miscegenation, or it was miscegenation, but the laws were anti-miscegenation. Okay, good. So even if you were white, or you were Spanish, or you were black, or any race, and you were married to someone of Japanese descent, you were also taken to this camp. Okay? How interesting is that? That's how scared the government was of this Japanese people being a threat. What? Wait, I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
I'm scared.
Who said I'm scared?
America. What happened to the
Oh, yes. It was terrifying, right? Yeah.
You know what's really interesting is the Pearl Harbor bombing is the Japanese ambassador did not know about this. So he's in America. And
we need to get Mr. Wolf in here.
Oh my God,
Pearl Harbor gets bombed. And he's like, wait, what's going on? And so they grabbed him. Or no, wait, they had to get him back since they had to get
You
him
need
back.
to get me information on this and everything you know about history so we can talk about it. Okay?
Charles says it's not true.
Have you ever heard the quote, like, all we did is poke a bear with a stick? They awoke America, and America destroyed them.
Nuked them twice.
Okay, guys.
Yeah, 2 times.
World War II was not like a this happened and this happened, and it was a really long war, right?
It was a
yeah.
very long
Again,
war.
I'm gonna need Mr. Wolf in here. Alright, refocus. Johnny, fix the computer, please. Okay? So, did you guys see the one internment camp on the map called Manzanar?
Yes.
Okay, guess what? You know how Miss Enid's husband lives somewhere weird in the desert because that's where he works? Talked about it a few times, okay? He actually lives about 2 miles from where Manzanar was. The camp is still there and it's a national park. I have been there. It made me cry. It was really interesting, okay? So what we're going to do, tomorrow we're actually reading a story, a personal story of a young girl who was incarcerated there, okay? That's why we're going over this information so you guys know what the heck is going on when we're reading about it. So you're not like, what is this?
I thought you said we were going to go on a field trip to Manzanar.
I wish! Oh my gosh, that'd be so fun.
Yeah.
Okay?
Let's do it.
Alright, so follow along as I read because it shows a horrible font color. I'm sorry, you can't even see it. Alright, so this is taken from the Manzanar National Historic website. This is describing what it is. Manzanar National Historic Site in California provides an opportunity to learn about one of the World War II Japanese-American internment camps. In 1942, the United States government ordered more than 110,000 men, women, and children to leave their homes and detain them in remote military-style camps. Manzanar War Relocation Center was one of 10 camps where Japanese American citizens and resident Japanese aliens were interned during World War II. Located at the foot of the imposing Sierra Nevada in eastern California's Owens Valley, Manzanar has been identified as the best preserved of these camps. Okay? Pay attention, aren't you? What, Caleb?
Said only in California.
Only in California, okay? Yes, we have the best preserved, because there's nothing out there. Literally. I've been there. Okay? So, why are we learning this? I kind of explained it to you, okay? But one, we're going to read an excerpt from a novel of a young girl. Her name is Jean, who lived in the Manzanar Japanese internment camp tomorrow, okay? So, she wrote her novel. We're reading an excerpt, which is just a piece of the entire thing. She wrote it in first person and explains her experiences through her eyes as a young girl, and she also includes observations from her beliefs now as an adult. Okay, so when you're reading it, the fear and the unknown, it's told from when she was actually taken and put in this camp. Okay, imagine being a kid and this happening. You would have no clue what was happening and why, and you'd be terrified. Okay, so check this out. Levi and Charles, push your computers forward. I don't want you on it right now. Okay. Alright, so this is Manzanar. What are these called? It's one of your vocab words.
Barracks.
Barracks, okay? Barracks. So it's housing for a specific group of people. In this case, it was Japanese Americans. So you guys can see the eastern Sierra Nevadas. What eastern Sierra means, so like along the mountain line of the Sierra Nevadas, the west side is like closer to the coast. So Fresno, Bakersfield, all those cities right there, LA. On the eastern side is closer to Nevada. It's a lot colder and a lot uglier. Okay? So, there's nothing. Nothing. It's just dirt. Okay? So you got the mountains and it's just flat for miles. So you can see all these barracks and it's fenced in this high all the way around. Okay? What?
At least they had good air quality. Instead of now, like, humans like this now.
Except, think about being in Death Valley in the summer. And Death Valley in the winter. Do you want to know what my husband wears to work in the winter?
No,
a giant Michelin Man snowsuit. Literally. Okay? It's a giant blue snowsuit. It's like 4 inches thick. That's how cold it is down there. So imagine having an Army-issued blanket. And are we taking notes or are we doing something else? Okay, that's fine. Okay? That's how cold it is in the winter. So imagine having an Army-issued blanket and housing that doesn't have any insulation. Imagine how cold that would be. There are babies and children in there. Alright, so this is actually from, I told you I've been there, I took pictures, okay? So they have an entire wall of all of the names of the people interned in Manzanar. They have the books of people when they actually checked in and wrote their names and signed it. They have all of that still preserved. So this is, I'm going to turn the lights out so you guys can actually see. We're going to play the door. Alright. Okay. So, the kids in the camp, to like basically stay sane, they made games. So this was like an actual, they weren't given anything, but they would make baseball diamonds. And they played, like this was the baseball fields. And this was the books of like the scores of games. And like that's the literal book of literal baseball diamonds. And then we have, okay, so this is the barracks. This is where people live. So this is a reconstruction of what it probably looks like. Johnny, stay with me. Okay? So here was your bed. And that was it. That was your room.
Here's your bed.
That's it.
And that was it.
Okay, this was the room. I'm sorry, there's a table.
There's a nightstand.
How convenient.
Chest.
Okay? So, you would have your entire family in this one room. You had one bed and one blanket. Alright? Now, these are the toilets. So, how many people were interned here? What was the number?
Big number.
110,000. Or
110,000.
That was for the whole thing. I think the Manzanar itself was 11,000? I don't think it was on here. I'll have to look it up, okay? So, thousands and thousands of people. this was the woman's bathroom. How many toilets are there?
About 5.
5. Okay. Imagine how long you would have to wait in line to go to the bathroom.
Wait a second.
That would make me go insane in general. Yeah, that was the woman's bathroom.
Oh,
sorry. There's some on the other side too. So there's 10 for all the women in the camp. There's one bathroom. Nice. Okay.
Well, they scored.
Because the whole camp always had to go at the same time.
Well, I'm sure the line never died down. Okay. So instructions to all persons of Japanese ancestry. So this says, ever since the U.S. Army... Oh, I can't read that. I could on my own. Oh, ever since the U.S. Army enclosed this 1 square mile with barbed wire in 1942, people have debated how to accurately describe Manzanar. During World War II, it was officially called a war relocation center. That sounds a lot nicer than a concentration camp, right? A war relocation center, while newspapers and some locals referred to it simply as the Jap camp. President Roosevelt and other officials on occasion referred to it as a concentration camp. Every person whose life was affected by Manzanar has their own story in their own words. We invite you to discover some of these stories and to ask yourself, what does Manzanar mean to history? What does Manzanar mean to me? So it's asking you to consider, like, these individuals, so all these people that were there, imagine going to each individual person and hearing their story, okay? So this was about all the different sports and how the kids kind of stayed together. Now, this is where Miss N cried. This was terrible. So they had a bunch of student work, because they had, quote-unquote, schools. Johnny, are you with me? What are we doing? Schools. Okay, on your computer. They had schools, and so these were some of the student work samples, and I can actually read some of the poems. So one of the poems says... I'm not going to be able to read it. Let me see if I can zoom in. I'm not going to be able to. No, I have it on my phone. I'll read it so you guys feel the same way. Basically. I'm sorry, Caleb.
Thank you.
I have to go through all my favorite pictures.
This can take a while.
It could take a while. The arrow? What do you mean?
On the iPad, like, there's an arrow where you can, like, see all of them. They're, like, smaller. And it has them, like, by date.
Oh, don't worry, I found it. Faith, I was just about to go with your idea. Yeah. Okay. All right. Ready? It was called My Mom, Pop, and Me. My mom, Pop, and me, us living 3, dreaded the day when we rode away to the land with lots of sand. My mom, Pop, and me. The day of evacuation, we left our little station, leaving our friends in my tree that bends away to the land with lots of sand. My mom, Pop, and me. Guys, it got me. Okay. There were tons of these poems of these kids who were just talking about how, like, upset they were and lost they were dragged to this place, and all they could decipher it as was a place with lots of sand. Remember how ugly it was? I've said that a million times. It's not pretty.
That's okay. I didn't need my heart anyway.
Ooh, way to keep the rhyme, the rhythm. All right, so this is another barrack. So they would house like 10 families in here, and they had basketball courts. That's Daryl, guys. That's my car. You guys say hi, Carson? Oh, the juniors say hi to Daryl and Big Ray every morning, okay? Big Ray's out there today. You guys can say hi to him.
What kind of car is it? I can't see.
Oh, that's a Jeep Cherokee.
Oh my gosh.
That's Daryl.
Oh my gosh.
All right.
Jeepers.
So imagine.
I love how it all turned in a second. We were like, wait.
I know. I don't think it's very weird, but apparently it's weird.
It's very weird.
So
Very weird.
this is all those kids had, right? Imagine being your age and being taken to this place with just absolute destitute. Okay. This is like your kind of outlet, is this basketball hoop that's lined with rocks. So this is something that they actually got, was this hoop. They made it with wood, and there's like a literal basket. It was a basket, no joke, okay? But yeah, so that was kind of like the visual. It's still there. It's free too, which is pretty interesting. And they have everything. They have movies. It's a complete National Historic Site.
By the way, if you name your car, you have to name it like a...
I'm talking about this and going back to my car? So I wanted you guys to kind of have an image of what this girl, Levi, went through. Okay, when we're reading her memoir tomorrow, I want you to kind of imagine what it would look like, what it would be like. Okay, think about all of the stuff that we went over that a little kid might have a hard time grasping. Okay, and it goes back to that question of was this constitutional? A, was it right? And if this ever happened again where we're at war, would this ever be allowed, or should it be allowed? Okay? So the next thing you're doing is you have a discussion board. So before you move, I want to make sure we understand the directions. So I want all eyeballs, please. Caleb, Belle, Jillian. Okay? It says, explain your initial response to the history of the Japanese internment camps in World War II, citing examples from the video or the slides presentation. Is this something you were aware of? Do you think something like this could happen again in the United States? And if you do, when and why would it be justifiable? Okay? So I'm asking you to do a few things. What is your initial response? And cite examples from the video or slides. Was there something that kind of caught your attention, or was there something that reinforced? Yeah.
They said that they let the Japanese young men be part of the army.
Yes.
So why would they not let them live their life if they were let them be? I feel like that'd be like
it's worse. The same thing African Americans served in the war, right? But they were never given full rights of citizens.
It's so stupid because like they were afraid of the Japanese. They'd give them guns.
They needed men. That was when the draft was taking place. It wasn't like we had this huge army at the time.
They could keep closer tabs on them if they're young.
That might have been
it's like you step
on
the line, you're gonna notice.
Well, where do you think they put those men? I don't know the answer to that, but if I'm, making inferences, I might be like, okay, stick you up front. So then if you are an enemy, I'm going to know. Okay? So, number 1, explain your initial response, citing examples from the video or slides. I don't want your opinion based on nothing. Okay? And then, do you think something like this could happen again in the U.S.? If you do, when and why would it be justifiable? When and why would it be okay to do that? All right? You're responding in 100 words or more, and then you need to respond to at least 2 others. Okay? Sentence frames are here for your discussion board. Things like, I agree with this statement. That's an interesting point, but although I think that's true, use academic language that we've talked about in responding to others, okay? And always, I suggest you have a discussion with someone who you completely disagree with. Don't look for people who have the same opinions. It's good practice to discuss with others. No, you just sit there right now. Hold on. Shh. Esther? Yes. I'm sorry. I didn't tell you that. You need to finish your charts as well. Hayden.
What's the words that you have to write for responding to someone and also just writing yourself?
So, make sure, everyone listen, make sure your response is at least 100 words and respond to at least 2 others in at least 50 words. Okay? So your personal response needs to be at least 100 words, and your responses to others, how many? 50. You're right. Okay? Alright. Yes.
So what's the last column of chart?
Yes. Yes, because you're just making predictions. So if you're, because remember, did I tell you, start like that? For you to like get reasons, because I want to know this and this and this and this on my page and what they're going to know. So then when you go over that, you're looking for those things. Raise your hand if you need help. If you finished early, maybe you can help someone else who's struggling a little bit. And lastly, you guys have the homework assignment on prefixes. It's all laid out right here. If we all finish, we can do it in class together.
How do I
Modules. And then go to the date. And then go to Thursday. You train Ginger Ale more than anybody ever done that. Do you guys want instrumental music?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'll play
I hear the background music to Halo 5.
We play Dragon Force.
Yeah, that's the best.
I don't know what any of that is, Levi.
It doesn't matter.
We can
Oh, I'm still recording. Hold on.
That is